So it's a couple of weeks now since Joe Crass and I, we put our little vlog live that we did at Tunnel Barn Farm. Still on the Match Fishing YouTube site, by the way. And we've never had as many messages about a subject as I've had in the last 2 weeks, and that is jigger fishing, and more importantly, fishing with the little micro jigger, as Joe called it, a smaller version of a jigger. Obviously, jigger fishing has been around for quite a while now, but like all methods, I suppose it gets refined. This is a bit of a unit. I'm catching an F1 every chuck today, but they've been about a pound, pound and a half a piece, and I've latched into a bit of a unit here. So I thought I could run you through. Obviously I spoke to Joe, a bit more detail about it. We've thought how we can improve the little jiggers even further to catch fish like that. It's got to be 3.5, 4 pound. And I thought I'd just run you through firstly how to make the floats, and secondly how to fish them. Now, I'm by no means an expert on jigger fishing. There's far better anglers doing it than me, getting really good results, but I can't argue with a fish or chuck, and it's actually, as a method that's transformed my shallow fishing, jigger fishing is it. You know, it's as big a leap forward as the method feeder is compared to an open ender. That's how big a leap forward it is. So firstly, let's talk about the jigger itself. It is a little Drennan crystal inline dibber that's been modified so the line goes all the way through it and just sits there, and it acts as a stabiliser really. Everything else, from your hook to your elastic, is just direct. It's direct to your elastic, which means when a fish takes the bait, in theory, it hits your elastic, hooks itself, which is the crux of the whole method. This little jigger, where it benefits over something that's slightly heavier, like one of these commercially available little jiggers, is that it takes less shot. It makes less noise when it hits the surface for when you're slapping for warier fish. Wary fish don't want that loud noise on the surface, they want a little tiny plop, and it takes less shot. So, like Joe says, he calls them a little micro jigger. They're brilliant on smaller venues. Obviously when it's windy, on more open venues, you're going to need a bit more shot, a bigger jigger. Right, to make the actual jigger itself, you need to get your little hacksaw and cut just below where the body of the float is. And then you take a drill bit and drill out each end of the float and fit a pole tip from a hollow tip from a pole float. That's the important thing. To start with, we were using the jigger without modifying it and putting that hollow tip in it, that thicker tube, but we found that the line was sticking slightly because the diameter of the tube was too thin. So by putting that pole tip bristle in, you're just increasing the diameter a little bit more. And then dab of super glue around the edge and just file it off so everything's nice and neat. And that's your jigger. You know, it's as simple as that. Easy to make at home. The rig itself couldn't be simpler. A length of line that your float runs on. If there's a limit between your pole tip and float at your venue, if there's a line length limit, you'll need to put a float stop above your jigger just to conform to those limits. Your jigger runs free running on your line, and then you've got your shot below. This is a 0.2 jigger, so I've got 3 number 9 shot above a 3-inch hook length. The hook length needs to be short. Forget what you learn about shallow fishing where you want long hook lengths. You want a short hook length for this method. A 3-inch hook length's just about perfect. And then, because we're fishing for F1s, 0.12 to an 18 hook, and a little bait band that's really tight to the bend of the hook. When you're fishing for F1s, I always find, get your bait band really tight to the bend of the hook, and you'll miss far fewer bites. They've not got big mouths like carp, so obviously you want the bait band as tight as you can get it to the hook, so you make sure that the hook goes in the fish's mouth when he takes the bait. As with all shallow fishing, feeding is where it's at. There's 2 baits for me. One is casters and the other one's pellets. If I was fishing on a big match, I think I'd bring some casters and start bladdering a load of casters in. But most matches are won now, pellet shallow, this time of year. Who am I to argue with that? I've got with me some 4mm Dynamite XL pellets today. And all I'm going to do is feed just as before I ship out, slap the rig a couple of times, and then fish on. Unreal how instant it is. And the trick is hitting that first bite, because while your pole's away from the surface of the water, i.e. you're playing a fish, landing a fish, those fish are feeling confident out there. And what you've got to do is keep the feed going in. You're aiming to keep those fish in that upper foot, 2 foot of the water column. And obviously that's where, it's more like it. It's about the stamp we've been catching today. I'd say £1.5 pounds. And that's where, obviously you want to keep your fish where they're easier to catch. Now when the fish decide, the fish decide they want to be a little bit deeper, maybe it's a bit of an overcast day, the air temperature isn't as high, that's when you need to start working your jigger. So it's alright slapping the rig, like we just did then, slapping the rig, hold the pole tip tight, bang, the fish hooks itself against the pole tip. The next way of working the rig is to ship out. Again, make a bit of noise, maybe slap your jigger in from a height, but then we're up and down, up and down. And there you go, straight away, we've got one on as well, again. And interestingly, it's not all about going up and down nice and slowly. You're not trying to mimic the loose feed falling. It's a strange concept to get into your head, but bringing the pellet up as fast as you can, the pole tip up as fast as you can to make that pellet move fast, and then dropping the pole tip again fast is often the best way. So you've got to almost forget everything you've learned about your normal shallow fishing that you do with a bristled float and a fixed rig, and get out there and give it a go, because you've just seen that I've caught 2 or 3 fish in the space of 2 minutes, and when every fish is like that, you can't argue.